We are in Telephone, Texas, and today is August the 14th, 2007, and my name is Gregory Hall, and I am in the home of Mrs. Gladys McCraw with two of her friends. And we'll start with her, and she can introduce her friends on either side of her.
This is Catherine Keaton, my friend, and this is Ruth Scribner, my friend.
And you both are neighbors here in Telephone.
Well, she lives in Duplex, and she lives at Elwood.
She lives at Tulip.
Tulip. See, I've done made a mistake.
Ms. McCraw, do you want to tell us generally when you came into the world?
I came in the world 1915, the 21st day of June. And we lived about 1.5 miles west of Telephone. And when I was a year and a half old, my dad moved down on the river on John Kushner's place. He lived at Tulip, where she lived. He owned this farm, and that's where we moved, and my daddy farmed that land where the pecan orchard is at this day.
All right, but now your father's name was?
Was Gene Harrison.
So you were a Harrison.
I was a Harrison.
All right, and who was your mother?
Willie Harrison.
And did they grow up in this part of the country as well?
They grew up right east of Telephone here.
All right.
Both of them did.
All right. Ms. McCraw, did you go to school here, or did you tell me at one point that you grew up in another community east of here?
I told you I moved to the Kushner place when I was 6 years old, and I lived there until I married, which I was 20. And we had what we called, it was Mud Branch at the time that I started to school down here. You know about where that is, don't you? Well, it's down, you know where the road is, like you turn to go to Mayfield's? You know, there's a forked road there? Okay, there was a 2-room school there. And that's where I went to school.
What was it called?
It was called Mud Branch, but they finally changed the name to Mayfield, which my husband's granddaddy gave the land for the school. And I started to school there, and I only went to the 7th grade. And of course, I graduated from the 7th grade and never went anywhere else. No.
That's not near here.
It's right due north of here. This road leads right by where I went to school.
Due north of Telephone.
Due north of Telephone.
All right. Now, Ms. McCraw, was that pretty much your experience as well?
Yes, ours was just a 2-room schoolhouse, and the only church we had was my husband's father. On Sunday afternoon, we would all go over to the schoolhouse, and he would bring some scripture reading, you know, and then I had an aunt that would play the organ, and that was our church. We had it also in the schoolhouse.
But now we're not talking about Telephone now.
No,
we're talking about
Mayfield.
Mayfield.
Right. Mayfield. No.
Were there stores? Was there a store in Mayfield?
No, we had no stores. We had peddling wagons. Mm-hmm. They were people that from Telephone and different places that had these peddling wagons. I know you know, and of course they were drawn by mules or horses or something, and they're the one that brought us all kinds of odds and end things. But now my mother, way back then, she traded at Elwood. Hoppers owned that store there at Elwood, and she did all of our buying except my dad was like your dad. In the fall, when we baled had our cottons in, we'd bring the bales all home. When we got so many of them, he would load them on a wagon and take them into Bonham, and he would have to stay all night. And and when he went into Bonham, he bought like flour, sugar, and pinto beans. That was what he'd bring home by the 100 pounds. And so then Mama would buy the other odd things that we needed, say at Elwood. Most of our trading was at Elwood store. That's mostly where we lived. Of course, we didn't have to buy milk. We had our own cows, we had our own hogs, and, and our own chickens. We didn't know what it was to buy a dozen eggs. We always had plenty of eggs, plenty of milk, plenty of hog meat. We had no way of keeping it now. But, you could hang it in a smokehouse. And it's some kind of deal that they rubbed this hog meat with. And it preserved that meat, and it would last up into June or July.
It was good.
And the way we did our sausage, my mother made our sausage, and of course we rented out our lard. And she'd fry sausage, and we'd have a big churn. And she'd pack these sausage in this churn, and they would last most of the year. We could take that grease off of them and get our sausage out, and they would last most of the year.
I remember people talking about hog killing on a cold day. Are you saying that they didn't have hog killing, say, in July?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so...
We killed our hogs in the wintertime when it was cold.
And prayed for to stay cold so they wouldn't spoil.
We had big hog killings. We'd meet at one place, and everybody bring their hogs there, and they would dress those hogs there, and then we'd take our meat home,
Now, you said that your dad would take his cotton crop to Bonham. Was it already baled? So there was a gin somewhere here?
Here, telephone. He had to bring his cotton to telephone. See, when we'd get a bale of cotton, my daddy would bring it to telephone and have it ginned. And then when we'd get another bale of cotton, he'd bring it to telephone and had it ginned. And most of the time, he knew just about how much cotton that would make a 500-pound bale. And that's what he'd do. He could tell by looking in the wagon if we had enough cotton to make a 500-pound bale.
But Ms. McCraw, you were saying you all didn't have cows.
We had some, but my dad had a truck too, and there'd be people around there that they called sending the cow to Fort Worth to sell them, and he'd pick up his truck full of cows of different people, and he'd take them to Fort Worth. And of course they had to stay all night, and they had to unload them, and most of the time they stayed until they sold, so he could bring the money back. So that was one of the things that now this was later in life. I had a lot of experiences before this ever come along. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of the things I want to ask you about is your awareness of the river and any traffic across the river that might have been going on during the years when you were young people here. Were you aware of much crossing?
We had right west of where we lived, our place was called Kushner Place, and the peelers from Bonham on the next lot, where there was what we called a ferry that transported things from Texas to Oklahoma, from Oklahoma to Texas. This ferry boat would go across, and whatever needed to be transferred from one place to the other, that's what they did it on. And can't nobody else remember this ferry. Can't find anything but me. Now y'all have to take my word that it wasn't there, because it was there.
And you remember seeing it?
Oh, Lord. I could tell you a story about that.
Well, go ahead.
Tell him, we want to hear him.
When I was about 8 or 9 years old, my dad sent me down to cut the Johnson grass out of the cotton field, and my brother. I had a brother older than me. So we knew that ferry was down there, and there was all kinds of people that congregated at this ferry, like they used to be a long time ago. So we, little kids we wanted to see what they were doing down there. So we go and we pee down there, And, of course, they were having a high heel time, Had a little bit of something under their belt, I'm pretty sure.
Hombre.
But they turned something on us which we thought was a gun. And it scared us. Really scared us. So we went back out and crawled across that cotton patch home. He'd raise up, he'd say, "Are they coming?" No. Directly I'd raise up and he'd say, "Are they coming?" No. Of course they wasn't. But we got to the house, and Mother wanted to know why we had come to the house. She knew we wasn't through with our job. We told her, said, Mother, those men was going to shoot us. They turned a gun on us. Of course, she laughed at us. She knew that they wouldn't. But I can remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Just crawling across that field.
Was there a tavern or what we would call a beer joint or anything there?
No, not there.
It's
Not
all
there.
bootleg.
I think there was one in Oklahoma. I'm not sure, but I have been told that's where a lot of them got. They went across to Oklahoma. I think they was but there wasn't any tavern there that I knew of, and I'm pretty sure that it wasn't.
Now, I've heard the ferries described, and I have pictures of one in Mulberry where it looked like it was sort of a barge. And was there a cable across the river? Do you remember?
Yes.
And was there something that pulled the
Yes.
barge across back?
Well, it was a cable, and they had to use oars, what they call oars. And so many of them they'd have to use them. And if they got to a place where they couldn't move it, they had long poles that they would stick in the water and push that boat. I mean, they called it a ferry. It was like a barge. Only it was just an old boat.
But it haul a wagon.
Yeah. Oh, it helped wagon.
One at a time, one wagon.
Hmm.
It would haul across the river.
One
wagon.
wagon. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And team.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any sense that did they ever use mules or horses to pull the barge back and forth across the river?
Well,
that you remember?
not that I remember, because the river was too deep. The river used to be deep.
Mhm.
It would be as high as 15 or 20 foot deep along there. Well, horses couldn't pull one,
Right.
so they had this cable. Now that's one that I remember. So they also had one down here where the bridge was. Do you remember the old bridge?
You're not talking about the bridge at Salt's Bluff? then?
No, I'm talking about the one right north of Mayfield School.
Can you describe it?
Yes. It was built in the 20s. I was just still of a kid. My daddy helped build this bridge. And do you know Bill Freeman? Okay, Bill Freeman's family run this bridge. It would cost 5 or 10 cents to walk across, maybe 15 cents to take a wagon and team across it. And that bridge was there until either 39 or 40. We think it was 40. And it fell in. But they also had a ferry there before they built the bridge, like when we was talking about. They had a ferry there before they built the bridge. So it had a cable too across it.
Did the bridge have a name, or was it associated with the Freeman family?
Well, if it did, I didn't ever hear it. All we kids all we talked about was the bridge. And of course it was,
One lane of traffic or two?
One.
One lane of traffic.
One lane of traffic, yeah. Just one, we could go one way and back to the other.
Seeing that Carpenter Bluff Bridge, well, the one down here and the one at Sal's Bluff would be on that order. The
Yes.
Carpenter Bluff, the one lane. Oh, you'd toot your horn and hope that no one started to cross. They'd have to back out.
And she told about some of the boys slipping across the. You tell that.
The boys would, they would maybe they'd go across the bridge, I guess, over to Oklahoma. And I guess they went over there. They might have had one of them little joints, over there when they were growing up. And they went over there one night. And I don't know how they got over there with Miss Freeman not knowing it. I don't know how they got over there. But when they started back across, it was all being real easy because they wasn't going to let Miss Freeman know they were coming across there, They was all walking real easy. And my husband, he was always pulling a joke. So he jumps down under the bridge and starts to holler. And of course, Miss Freeman turned on that light and she caught them all.
And they had to pay.
Yeah, they had to pay.
They was trying to get by without pay.
I wish Bill was still living. We needed to met with him.
I remember stories from Mulberry where people used to get a big kick out of scaring other people. Was that common here as well?
Oh, yes. My granddaddy Harrison, he was always scaring us. He'd grab him a sheet or something other and get out by the side of the house, and he'd make a racket. Of course, Mom would say, "Go see what that racket is," and it'd be him with that sheet wrapped around him.
I'd kind of forgotten that.
Well, my granddaddy was a prank. I said, if you left home and he come while you was gone, you got home and there'd be hoes on top of the house, there'd be plows on top of the house, there'd be everything you could think of that he could find, he'd put on top of the house. So we'd come home, we knew Grandpa had been there.
He
And
left
now
his
your
mark.
grandfather would have been who?
Iberish Harrison, and her name was Hasseltine.
Oh,
Have you ever heard of Hasseltine?
I
That was
never
my
have.
grandmother's name, Hasseltine.
how in the world would you spell that?
I know. I saw it on you, but I can't remember how they spelled it.
Before we maybe go on to something else, though, are there other memories of the way people entertained themselves? You mentioned what it was like to some degree in Tulip. Over here, were there other social events that you were aware of?
Our social was parties. Different houses would have a party, and we would play all kinds of games, you know. Any kind of game you could think of, we'd play those games. And that was our entertainment. Of course, we all had to walk to go to different houses, but it'd be somebody, like on Saturday night, that's about the only time we had any entertainment, because we had to work most of the time. But we'd go to those houses, and we would play all kinds of games. And of course, you know, I forgot what all them names was of them games.
Well, I know one was Knocking for Love.
Oh, yeah. See, they lived what we call like going to Bonham or somewhere like that from where I live. See, I live down here, and of course, as
She
we
just lived
said,
downriver.
we had to walk everywhere or ride a horse or something to go anywhere. So I didn't go to a lot of these things that they had. But we had entertainment the same down here at Mayfield. We'd have those plays.
Well,
And
we'd
I
come
remember-
to them in a wagon. Everybody went to everybody's plays. They had a good audience,
Yeah.
big audience.
I didn't get to go.
You didn't? Well, I did. I'd get to go.
Well, one of our plays that we had, I remember very well. We had them every year, of course, but this one, they wanted me to black up like a colored person. And I was taught to Charleston from the time I was knee-high to a pup, and I guess I could do it pretty doggone good from what they think. They still want me to do it, but my legs won't do it. But I had to do that in that play, Colored Up. So that was one of my biggest plays that I remember, having to do that.
Gladys, I hate I missed that one.
We'd like a rerun on that.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of how it was that the years of the Depression came on?
Well, you know, we raised so much of our food that we always had a lot of, most of the basic foods at home. And as I said, my daddy always managed some way or another to get our extras. I don't know, he had friends, I guess, that could get this stuff, and we never did get to where, I can never remember us having to have cornbread for breakfast. We had flour all the time. But the way we had cornbread, we raised our corn. We took it to Elwood. Mr. McCraw had a grist mill, and he ground our corn, our meal, and made meal. So we always had cornbread, you know, and we always had biscuit, because my daddy always kept us in flour. He never let us, I never went to bed hungry in my life. Never went to bed hungry. He was a good provider. Well,
They just out on
they was
what we'd
hobos
call down
come to
on the
our
luck.
house that didn't work. All they wanted was a meal. And when one come, my daddy always told my mama, said, feed him. And then he'd go on his own. But we had a lot of really hobos. They didn't come to work. That's the way they lived, from house to house. You know, they'd go make it at somebody's house and they'd feed them, you know. But they were really hobos. I mean, you know, that you saw in movies, regular old hobos. No, they didn't pretend to work. They just come by, and of course my daddy always told Mama to feed him, you know, and then he'd go on his way, and he'd probably stop somewhere else for the next meal, you know, and that's the way a lot of them did back then, you know. And I don't know whether they didn't have any family. Of course, I didn't never know that, why they were hobos, but that's what we called them, was hobos.
Now, Ms. McCraw, you married into the McCraw family, and your husband was?
Jack McCraw.
And were they living here in this telephone area at the time you met them?
No, we all lived at Mayfield. They all lived at Mayfield. Jack's granddaddy and grandmother owned quite a bit of land around where the school was, and all of his family was, they all come from down in there. They didn't come from any other community, you know, or anything. And so we just, you know, it was just McCraws mostly down there, and quite a other few. I could name on my name how many different people in the community. The Magnuses, the Rungans, and the Dooleys, the Brawleys. Those were people that went to school with us, you know. I was at Elwood Church that night.
Do you remember what year it happened?
Well, I was about 16 to 17 years old, I guess, or maybe a little older. I might have been. It was before I ever married.
Mm-hmm.
It was before I ever married. We saw that, a friend of mine saw that. We saw it coming, and somewhere or another we were foot that night. We walked from Elwood Church up there where the cemetery is, down here to the Kushner farm. That's where we both lived. But we saw that coming, and she had a brother and his wife and 2 kids that lived in Elwood. You know, this was Eva Jackson. Did you know Eva Jackson? Well, that's who it was. And her brother, and so we went to their house and got them awake, and then we went to a cellar there right there in Elwood that night, the night that it blew away Tulip. Well, there at Elwood, there were about 20 people in this cellar.
In those early days, were the churches interdenominational at the time, or how did the churches serve in that period of time?
My husband's dad was raised up as a Methodist, but we didn't have anything like a certain name for the services that we had. Any denomination, anybody, whatever they believed, they were welcome to come to the church, to the school on Sunday afternoon. And Mr. McCraw and one of my aunts, he would do he just mostly did the reading of the Bible. And she would do the playing, and we'd have singing. And that was about all the church we had down there. But it wasn't any denomination at all. It was all just a community church. We all went to church. Well, they had a revival before the church was ever moved up there. They had a Brush Harbor revival, and Lillian Sellers was a preacher. She was I don't know what denomination she called herself. She wasn't a Baptist, she wasn't a Methodist, she wasn't a Church of Christ. It was kind of a wholeness like.
Charismatic.
Okay, yeah, and I remember that's where I was saved, because I remember the night that she brought the message, and I was there at Elwood, and they had the seats from out of the church sitting out there, and I was sitting on the very back seat. And when they made the church call, I thought about whoever was standing around me. Kept looking. Nobody made a move, but I had to make it because the Lord called me.
Can you describe that? Do you remember that evening?
I remember it just as much as if it was yesterday.
So how old were you?
I was 14. I was 14. And I didn't just go up and shake hands with the preacher. We had moaner benches. And I went up and fell at the moaner's bench. And that's where I took the Lord as my Savior.
Now, had there been services the previous evenings,
Yes,
and you had attended them as well?
I had attended them. But that night I
Do you remember whether you felt that you were moving in that direction all week?
knew I was. I didn't just know it. I knew I was moving into it. I remember it as well as it had been yesterday. But I didn't join no church. I didn't join a church until the year before I married. I was 19, and this little Baptist church here was right down here where the Wardrops lives. And they had a Brush Harbor revival down there. And we still didn't have a way to go. Papa had a truck, but, you know, he was always hauling stuff. So Mama hooked up the mules, and we came up there that night. We left when the sun was way up yonder. Came up there that night, and that's when I joined the Telephone Baptist Church in 72 years ago. And I've been a member of the Telephone Baptist Church ever since.
You mentioned coming to what was called the mourner's bench.
Yeah, you don't remember those?
Actually, I do, but can you describe?
Well, most of the time they just got a log somewhere and they hewed it out. And it was just a long log, and they two things under it, you know, and this log was there. And we would go to kneel and lay our heads or pray on this mourner's bench.
And there was a woman who was the minister that night.
It was a woman, Lillian Sellers. She was a wonderful preacher.
Did she travel about the countryside so far as you know?
Her family did. They lived at Mayfield at one time, but then they traveled different places, and they would hold revivals at different places, wherever they went. Well, when Jack and we went to school together, and of course we always kind of liked one another all through the years, you know. And when we got married, we didn't have a way to go anywhere. We had to walk everywhere. So Uncle Ben Mayfield lived up here Telephone, and he had a car. Very few people in the community had cars. So Jack walked from down there up here and picked up Uncle Ben's car, came back down there and picked me up and my friends from Oklahoma, Edgar Marie McClary, and then we picked up Aunt Irene and Mary Jo Mayfield, and we went to Bonham. And the preacher that had married my mom and daddy and most all the families, we went to his house, but he was across from his house, the Simpson, that park up there. He was over there. They was having, you know, some kind of picnic or something.
Simpson Park.
Yeah.
Brother Milo.
So, yeah, that's who it was, Brother Mike. So when he saw us stop over there, he came over and he said, he had his Bible. Of course, the preachers most of the time carried their Bibles wherever they went. He said, do y'all want to go in the house to get married, or you want to marry out here? So we married under the shade of a tree out there with 4 attendants.
He was a marrying preacher.
Yeah, he was. But he married
That
my
was
mom
right
and
across
daddy,
from
and he,
Simpson Park on the east side
In Bonham.
in Bonham.
Yes.
That's where he lived.
he lived there right close to where the mattress factory is. Is where he lived when we got married. Now that tree has been cut down. It's not there anymore where we married.
Rob, what memories do you have of the REA coming?
Well, I just remember getting lights. We didn't get a lot of electric stuff. We just had the lights. We were just so happy just to have the lights. We still used our old stoves, and I had a gasoline washer. We had bought that, but we lived down there on the river in a log cabin. And the first washer I had, of course, it was a gasoline, or you know. And our house burned. Jack Wayne was about. Jill was 3, and Jacqueline was about 7 or about 8 or 9. And we lost everything we had except my husband pulled that washer out now. That was the last thing we'd bought, and he pulled that out and saved that washer when our house burnt. But we got out. I didn't get out with any clothes at all because it burned early in the morning. He had got up and went to the barn to feed the hogs, and he had lit. We had those butane stoves, I guess. We had the butane stove, and he had lit it, and it was the old kind that had a long burner on it, and you had to do this and everything else to get it to so it'd burn right. Well, he said he guessed he didn't do that, and it flamed up and caught the paper fire, and that's when it burned our house.
Mm-mm.
And the wind was about 40 or 50 miles an hour out of the north, cold. It was in January, and we didn't get anything out.
That was you and your husband. So.
My husband and I. Yeah,
That'd have been awful.
yeah, it was. We went to those lodges. We had good parties and everything at those lodges, didn't we?
It really was.
Good dances too. We had dances.
Dances all the time, that floor.
That was one of our
You had a
things.
jukebox, didn't you?
Huh?
Beautiful, beautiful.
We had a
place.
jukebox that really played good music.
Do you have memories of Lake Fannin?
Oh, yeah.
Ruth?
Well, that was one of the closest places that we really had to go to really be sociable, you know, with everybody.
Swim
Everybody went there. It was just from all parts of Fannin County went there. My daddy was a fisherman. He wasn't a cowboy. He was a fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we made our own nets. We called them. He made. What did they call them?
Hoop nets, I guess.
Yeah.
Made the hoops.
Hook nets. That was his big hobby, was fishing
Fishing in the river?
in the river.
Uh-huh.
And we made those nets, and it was like this. That, of course, that's just a small thing, but this is all round. And we took this and did it with thread and made these nets. And then this is what they call the throat of the nest. That's just a terrible picture. That would call a throat. It was a separate piece that we made, and then we fashioned it to this main one, and then this was another one. And they had a place for the fish could come in this, and they'd go in here, and then they'd go on down to here. Well, they couldn't come out because of the way those were made. It was made to where they couldn't come out. So that's the way they caught their fish.
And this in your hand here, that piece of wood?
This is what we used to make those nets.
Great.
See, this part is broke off of it, and no telling how many of these we had. My daddy hewed these out. He made them, and then we would take this thread, and you'd go around. Well, we'd start most of the time. We'd start up here and we'd hold it. We'd come around here. We'd go down here, and then we'd come back up here, and we'd go down here and go right back, and that's the way we threaded it.
Yes.
And we could just put so much on that. And so when we run out of thread, we had to learn to tie. It was a special knot that we made these nets with. And when we run out, we would have to learn to tie. We'd cut off and tie on to it, you know. We had to learn to tie a certain knot that wouldn't slip on those nets.
Now, did he put these out in the river?
These were in the river. This is what he fished with.
And he would go and take those out every day, I guess, and see
Well,
what
he'd
he
go
caught.
run them to see if he got any fish. Sometimes he'd leave them in there several days, but if he got about all the fish we wanted to eat for a week or two,
Yes.
he would hang them up in a tree and let them dry, and then when we got hungry for fish again, he'd go put them back in the river, catch us some fish. And
That's
another
why
thing
she's
I wanted
lived
to
this
tell you.
long, eating fish.
Hmm?
I told him that's why you contribute to your long life is them eating all that fish.
I'm going to tell you this about it. I can't remember now for sure whether we made it was a long net. It was about 15 to 20 foot long and about 3 or 4 foot wide. And they would take stakes and, some kind of limb or something and tie onto this long, they called it a net. Mm-hmm. And men would take it across the river like that. There'd be one down here and all along there, there'd be men holding these, and whenever the fish would come down the river, they'd go into that, and when they had about all they thought they needed, they'd pull them up on the bluff, and they'd pick out the ones that they wanted to keep, and the ones they didn't want to keep, they'd put it back in the river. And then everybody would bring their wash pots and everything, and we'd have a big fish fry down on the river.
Yeah.
And we do that pretty often every year, several times a year. Everybody in the community now did this.
You had plenty to feed them, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So who was your mother?
Willie Mitchell Harrison.
And you said she had 13 children.
Mm-hmm. She had 13 children. And I was the oldest girl. And I had a brother older than me. And there's 3 of those passed away between them and my next brother, which was Pete Harrison. And so then she raised 10 children. There was 10 of us, 5 girls and 5 boys. And but see, I was the oldest of them, and Mama had all these children. And of course, I had to help her raise them. And I didn't get any schooling because we were farmers, and I had to work in the field till we got all the corn, cotton, and everything out. And of course, that was nearly Christmas. So then I went to school. A little during that time, my mother'd have a baby, and I'd have to stay at home and take care of it. Help her take care of it. So I only went through the 7th grade in school. So I don't have any education. But anyway, we farmed there. We first started out farming with the one-row cultivator. And we had a horse and a mule, or 2 mules, something that pulled it. Then we progressed up to where we had a 2-row cultivator, and we'd have 4 mules. And Papa put me to laying off rows. They went from where that pecan orchard starts to the river. And I would have to take those mules and lay off a row that far.
Now, were you riding a cultivator? Or
I was walking
you were
at this
walking
time.
behind it?
At this time.
Mm-hmm.
But finally we got a rider, and it was a 2-row. So we had 4 mules to it, and we could ride, and do that. And I don't know how old I was. Well, I can't remember how old I was when my daddy finally got a tractor, and we started farming with the tractor. And we raised cotton and corn and maize, and at first, that's all we ever raised. Then as the years progressed, like y'all, we started raising peanuts. So we had a stationary peanut thresher, which everybody else had. We had to take a wagon, load the wagon, bring it to the thresher, and thresh those peanuts. And I always had to do the sewing of the bags.
Mm-hmm. That was your job.
Yeah, that was my job. But then we finally, through the years, we got a peanut thresher that done its own thing, But what I'd like to tell you is I can't find anybody that can remember this, but there was a ferry boat down there that went across over into Oklahoma. Bill Scribner remembers it. And I can't find anybody else that remembers that ferry boat. And I was just about 8 or 9 years old. And my daddy sent my brother and I out to get the Johnson grass out of the cotton so high. Well, old ferry boats back then, they usually drank and had a big time. So my brother and I were down working. We heard them down there just having a good time, so we decided that we would just go down there and see what they's doing. Well, we got to the top of the bluff. You know how the ferry goes. Yes. If anybody ever knew a ferry. And they were having a big time down there. Well, we were peeping, and some of them saw us. So I can't swear today whether it was a stick or gun, but we thought they pulled a gun on us. So we go back out to the cotton patch, just scared to death. We crawled across that cotton patch to the house. Every once in a while, one of us would look and say, "Are they coming?" And then the other. Of course, they wasn't, but we kids we thought they were.
Yes.
So we got to the house, and of course, Mama wanted to know what we was doing. Well, we told her them men down there was going to shoot us. So that was one of my incidents right there.
Yes.
But it's kind of hard for me to always remember. This is something that's kind of fascinating to me. We had peddler wagons, people that, that come by and sold us all kinds of stuff, And in the spring, they always had straw hats. So Mama told me if we had enough eggs, that she'd buy me a straw hat. Well, they had ones with the balls around them. And I wanted that so bad. But Mama said, we've not got enough eggs to buy that. So I didn't get the one with the balls on it. But I thought, well, if I wear this down to the river and let the wind blow this old hat in the river, maybe she'll have enough eggs to buy me one with the balls on it. But of course, the wind didn't blow it in the river. It blowed it down there, and I'd have to go down and pick it up. So I had to wear that old hat. Never did get the one with the balls on it. But anyway, of course, I grew up during all this time, and I guess, like everybody else, we had our parties and our, at people's houses. That's where we had our parties. We didn't have anything else, anywhere else to go. We had to walk everywhere we went. So we had our parties, and girls would come and stay all night with me. And one night, my uncle and his family come to spend the weekend with us. And one of the girls, three of us had to sleep together. One of them loved cats. Well, she got this little cat and put in a bed with us. And me and the other girl, we didn't like it. But no way in the world we could get her to put that cat out of our bed. We had to sleep with the cat. But that was just some of the...
Was that called a slumber party in that day and time?
No, it wasn't. It was just a family. Just come to spend the weekend with us. They come in a wagon.
Yes.
They came from Maxie up here and spent the weekend with us.
Yes.
And but I remember that so well. I didn't want to sleep with that cat.
You said that your mother did some of her trading at the Hopper store at Elwood. Do you have any memories of going there yourself to the Hopper store?
Oh, yes. We always went to the Hopper store. Even after Jack and I married, we traded at the Hopper store. We traded Bob Hopper and then Albert Hopper. Albert took it over after Bob Hopper died. I don't know whether you remember any of them or not, but after the...
But in the earliest days when you were a child going there, did they have bacon or...
Oh,
Of course,
yeah.
you had your own pork.
And
But-
they had material that Mama would buy material there to make our garments with. We didn't know what it was to buy anything ready-made because Mama always made them. And then after I got old enough, she put me to the machine. And so I made clothes ever since I was about 12, 13 years old. I was the one that did all the sewing for the family after I got a certain age. So I made all my sisters and brothers clothes. And
Did you help with the cooking and other housework?
Yes. I had to milk cows. We milked cows, and those cows wouldn't come up. So we'd have to go drive those cows up. And I didn't have a horse to ride, so I had to walk. And my grandpa and grandma lived across the pasture from us. And I always managed to go by my grandma's house. And she always had jelly and biscuit. And she'd say, "Do you want a jelly and biscuit?" And of course I did. So I remember my grandma's jelly and biscuits.
Yes.
So it was, see it till today. But then, of course, my daddy was a fisherman. We made these nets, out of, he'd buy these big balls of twine, and I've got one of the hooks in there now, that we made those nets out of. And in the summertime, that was when we'd have to make those nets. And my brother and I, of course, we all had to work in the field. But Papa'd let one of us stay and work on them nets and the other one work. So we had to take time about. And I sure was glad when I got to sit under that shade tree and work on them nets.
Were you closer to one of your brothers than you were
My
to your
oldest
other
one.
siblings?
My
And
oldest.
was he older than you?
Yeah. He was nearly 2 years older than me. Yeah. Now the others, you see, was between me and him and Pete. Now, I remember when Pete was little, and two or three of the others I remember that was little young. Pete was the next one to me after the ones that died. So I remember him better than I did. Then my other sisters wasn't very big. My youngest sisters, one of them was 3 and the other one was 4 when Jack and I married. So you see, I wasn't raised with them. Of course, I did for them after I married, but I wasn't raised with them. And then I had one brother that was born after Jack and I married.
Now, when you and Jack married, did you live down there in the same general neighborhood?
I lived in that same house
In the same house?
from the time I was a year and a half old till I married when I was 20. And I lived in that same house
With your parents?
with my parents.
With your parents?
With my parents.
After you married?
No, I didn't live there after we married. Jack and I moved out.
Okay, but I mean, did you move to some house in the area there?
Well, the first 2 years we were married, we moved to Bailey.
Oh, over to Bailey.
We went out there and we worked on 3rd and 4th, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, somewhere or another we got some mules, and my brother-in-law and them, when we moved out there. So we farmed some cotton for 2 years. And then we moved back down here. We didn't like the black land, because that stuff would stick to your feet and you couldn't even walk when it was muddy. So we liked the sand.
Which is what you have here.
So, yeah.
Right.
So we moved back down there where Mayfield's big deal is now.
Yeah.
There was a little house there, but yeah, and that's where Jack and I moved back to. And we lived there until, I guess my son was about 9 or 10 years old, and my daughter was about a year and a half old. So we decided we wanted to farm. We were working for JR. That's what Jack was doing. He was working for JR, day labor.
J.R.
McCraw.
McCraw. Was that his brother?
That was his brother, his oldest brother.
His oldest brother.
And so we all worked for them, day labor, you know. So we decided that we would like to farm on our own. So Claude Elliott from Bailey said he owned the land where we moved, when we moved. And so he told us that he would loan us the money to get us a tractor. And we farmed 40 acres there for I don't know how many years.
Now, do you have a general idea of when that might have been, in the 40s or?
Yeah, my daughter was about a year and a half old, and she's born in 43, so it's about 45, 46, or 47, something like that. And then it was an old log house, and of course back then they stuffed paper in them to keep air out.
The window.
And no telling how many layers of paper that was on the wall. But in January, we got up one morning, Jack got up to build a fire, and we had got those gas stoves by this time, you know, with the long burners. And he lit the stove, and then he went to the barn to feed the hogs. And he looked back, and the smoke was coming out of the kitchen. So he hollered at me, and I got the kids up. I hadn't even got dressed. I didn't get out with any clothes at all. I got out with a coat and some underwear, and that was all I got out. I didn't get out with any clothes. That was a hard time.
Yes.
Freezing.
Oh.
The ground was froze. By that time, we had bought a truck, and they didn't have antifreeze back then. You had to drain your truck every night.
Oh, my.
And we didn't have any water in our truck. And we didn't save anything, saved a washer. I had got a ringer type washer, and we saved that. And that was all we saved out of that old house. No insurance. That happened in January. Well, in February, I had an attack of appendicitis. So I had to have surgery in February and no insurance. We wasn't able to buy care insurance. So we had to charge it. And then we'd pay it as we could, you know. So
Did you have the surgery in Bonham?
The first one I had was at the M&S Clinic.
Yes.
M&S Clinic, yeah, that's where I had the first one. Yeah. And we had to charge it. The doctors let us charge it, and the hospital did too. And we had to, as we got the money, we paid them, you know. But we paid it all.
You said something earlier to the effect that maybe you had wanted to be a nurse.
I wanted to be a nurse, but my daddy didn't have the money to let me take nurse course. And I had an uncle in Dallas that had wanted to, he said he would give me a nurse's course, you know. But my daddy and mama didn't think they could do it without me, which I don't guess they could with all the kids. I was the one who had to help me take care of them. So I didn't get to be the nurse. But this was even, part of this was before I ever married. One of my sister-in-laws, I mean, she wasn't married, she was a baker. And her mother had a baby. So the old doctor wanted to come get me, because old doctor, he'd come and doctored all of Mama's kids, and I was the one that had to see that everything was done, you know. So this old doctor, I believe it was Dr. Williams, I believe is what his name. He came down and delivered the baby. Well, they had to take him back to telephone because he didn't have where to go. Gert Jackson took him back to telephone.
Took the doctor back to telephone.
Of course, I dressed the baby, took care of the baby, and put it in the bed with its mother. But it kept wiggling. And she said, said, something wrong, it's wiggling. Well, I went and got the baby and took it in the kitchen. And it was bleeding at the navel cord. So I knew that we couldn't get a doctor back down there. So my sister-in-law was with me, Lily McCraw, and we didn't have alcohol back then. So I told her, I said, you get some twine string, that's what we tied them with, and you boil that, and we've got to tie this navel cord back, and we did. And that girl's still living today.
Yes.
But one of my sister-in-law, J.R., and his wife had a baby. She had a baby. Didn't get a doctor there. They called me. That was after Jack and I married.
Yes.
They called me, and I went over there. Well, J.R. was in the field, and way across the field, and they had to go to Duplex to get the doctor. That's the one that he wanted to use for that baby. So it was about 3 or 3.5 hours, that. So Lily, she kept telling me that I could cut the cord and dress that baby. And I did.
Now this is another baby.
This was another baby.
A different
baby.
Yes.
So I cut that cord. And I had watched the doctor enough that I knew how to do it. You had to tie it off, skip so far and tie it off again. And cut in between that. And I bore my scissors and bore my twine string. So that's what I did to that baby.
The first time you might have been just a teenager, though. Did you tell me that?
I was about 17.
Yes.
17 years old, something like that.
Did you find yourself helping with medical problems of your younger siblings as well?
One sad thing that happened when I was young, my daddy had pneumonia, and he was real sick, and the old doctor come and they gave him what they call Raymond pills. That's what they gave for everything they doctored him for. So he told me they come in a little pasteboard box, and he told me to get his medicine and bring him some water. And when I got the medicine and went to get the water, we didn't have any in the bucket. So I had to go to the pump and pump water to be able to give him his medicine. And I had set that pasteboard box down on a quilt box we had there. And I had a little sister that was 13 months old. And when I got back, I said, Papa, where's that medicine? He said, I don't know. And I found her on the front porch. She had found that medicine and had chewed that box and that medicine and had stuck the box through the hole in the porch. So I told Mama, I said, Imogene has eat this medicine. Of course, back then you didn't have any way to get doctors. I guess I was about 13 or 14 years old at this time. So she died. She had convulsions and died. And that's one thing that really, really hurt me. But wasn't anything I could do about it. So
you had a lot of responsibility as a child.
I did.
Because of your coming early among the other children.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you were aware of that at the time?
No, I didn't realize it. I did what I was told to do. And another baby that I helped deliver, it was after Jack and I married. This old doctor, he come, and I helped him deliver that baby. And of course, she had a real hard time delivering the baby. So this is something that I remember. The old doctor told me to get a pan of warm water and a pan of cold, just regular water, and have it handy so when he got that baby, when that baby was born, it wasn't breathing. It was already turned dark. And he dipped it from one pan to the other and shocked life back into that baby.
And it lived.
And it lived. Yeah, he lives in California right now. Of course, I had to dress him and everything.
Now, that was not a member of your family.
No,
did the neighbors call upon you
the,
to come because you had done this before?
The doctor's the one sent after me.
The doctor sent after you because the doctor knew that you had experience?
Knew that I had experience of all the kids and things.
Yes.
You know, he knew that I had the experience. And he always wanted me to come and help him deliver them, you know. And I did. But anyway.
Then the time came for you to have your own children.
It's just so many things that it's just hard to remember all of it, you know. But talking about, we raised our cows, we raised our hogs, we raised our chickens, and we raised our potatoes. We raised corn and made our meal. We bought none of that stuff when I was growing up because we raised it, and we'd take the corn and have it ground into meal. So my daddy would go he would go in a wagon. This was back when I was young. He'd go in a wagon to Bonham, and he would buy beans, flour, and sugar. Because we had our own lard, and of course Mama would buy the staple things like baking powders and all that stuff at Elwood store. Mm-hmm. That's where she bought all that, yes. All the little knickknacks. But Papa would go to Bonham. He'd take him a day to drive up there. He'd stay in the wagon yard, and then he would buy all this stuff for us to have, you know. And then next day it'd take him all of the day to get back home.
One of the things that you mentioned in the early part of your interview the last time was your own religious conversion and your experience and how that has been a part of your life. Would you say that religious observance was very central to your parents' life as you were growing up?
Yeah, yeah. We didn't get to go to church because we didn't have any churches, you know, down here. We had church, Mr. McCraw, that was Jack's daddy. He would, my mother would get us in a wagon and go to the schoolhouse down there, and we'd have singing, and he'd read scriptures, you know. We didn't have like kids have Sunday school now, you know, they're trained. But we just all was together, you know, we never was trained like that. But we was taught, you know, at home, had our Bible and everything, we were taught at home, you know. And,
were most families involved in a religious experience?
They were involved.
Or were there
like
some that didn't?
Well, there were some that didn't. There were some that didn't, wasn't, you know. But most of them was kind of like we was. If they went, they had to go in a wagon. And they were having a revival at Elwood, up there where the schoolhouse used to be there, you know. Well, I think they had a church there, didn't they? I think they did. Anyway, this was a Brush Harbor revival. And that's where I accepted the Lord there. Yes. But I didn't join a church then. And later on, while we went to a revival here at Telephone, and I joined the Telephone Baptist Church, and I've been a member of it for 73 years. 73 years. place to another. I'll never forget. In the old auditorium, we would have to go clean that. They would took time about going and cleaning it, on weekends before Sunday. And we finally got enough money that we bought some carpet. And I had been at work that day, and I came back by out there, and the carpet was down. And I was so thrilled that I just laid down in the floor and enjoyed that carpet.
Yes.
Because it was a lot easier took care than those floors was. We'd have to sweep them and mop them on just on wood floors,
Yes. And what year did he pass away?
He 93.
93.
He passed away in 93. Yeah. And I've lived here by myself ever since. Kids asked me when he passed away what I wanted to do. I said I'm going to stay home.
Yes.
And when I had this little 6-valve, my daughter asked me if I wanted to go to Woodmore's. I said, no way. Not yet. Oh, yeah.
Jack was always a carpenter.
He was a carpenter.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
He's helped build all the brick houses around here and some of the wood houses. And
Yes.
most of, not the new ones now, but
Right.
the ones that they had.
Another building that people notice here in Telephone is this brick building that's called the Dewdrop Inn now, but it was the bank originally.
It was the bank.
Do you have any
Oh, yes.
memories of that?
Oh, yes.
Things that happened there?
It was a bank and a post office.
Okay.
Jess Moore, that lived here in Telephone, he was the one that run the bank there. And have you been in it?
Yes.
It's got the bank
Vault there.
vault there. Yeah,
Yes.
the bank vault's there. Yeah.
Yes.
And they also had a drugstore there in it. They had ice cream. Oh, and everything,
But it was built, I guess, as a brick building before you
yeah, before I ever.
were aware of it.
It's older than I am.
Yes.
It's older
Yes.
than I am. And so it's way over 100 years old. Maybe I have no idea how old it is. I don't know whether anybody else has. I don't know. But that building has been there.
Well, I want to thank you again now for this interview.
Well, I don't know where I've told you what you needed to know or not. But
Well, of
that
course
was
you
just
did.
my life.
Of course you did. And I'm glad to have it now to add to this earlier section of material that we talked through.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your taking the time to do this. And I'll
Well,
get you a copy, of course.
I don't mind it. My kids have been wanting me to write about my childhood. But I worked so many years. I worked until Jack got sick and I had to take care of him. And he was sick a year and I didn't go back
Did you
to
work in Bonham or where did you work?
I worked when I first started working for the public, I worked at Bonham Manufacturing. I worked at Big Smith's. I worked at Love's in Honey Grove. I worked at Super Sack in Savoy. And that's where I was working when Jack got sick.
Uh-huh.
And they wanted me to come back, and I was 77 years old. And my daughter didn't want me to go back. She
Sure.
wanted me to retire, and that's when I guess I retired, when I was
Yes.
77.
Yes, yes.
So she took me on several trips. We've been to Hawaii, we've been on cruises, and we've been to Nashville, Tennessee, where I always wanted to go to those musicals down there. We've been to all of that. I have really done a lot of going
Oh, that's wonderful.
since
Great.
then. Jack didn't like to go.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even want to go camping.
Mm-hmm.
He just liked home.
Yeah.
He just liked to be at home. And after he passed away, Jill said, "Now, Mother, we're going to travel some." So we did. We traveled quite a bit.
Good. Good.
Yeah. And I enjoyed it. Helped raise her. We all helped raise our kids, all of
Sure.
McCraws.
Sure.
See, it was 6 of us lived in a row down there. We all had dinner somewhere every Sunday.
6 McCraw families.
6 McCraw families, and we'd eat at somebody's house every Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
Of course,
And that went
everybody
on-
would cook something and take
Oh,
it.
sure,
you know.
of course. But that went on for years.
That went on for years when our kids was little. All of our kids was raised together.
I realized what a large family you had married into, and you were referring to the 6 McCraw families living there. That must have been a different experience. You hadn't had that much family growing up before you married?
Well, not that close. Now, my daddy had 2 brothers and 3 sisters, and my mother had 3 brothers and 1 girl. But we wasn't, we lived so far apart. We wasn't. See, the McCraws, we all lived right down there together.
Yes.
And that was the reason we were there. Now, our main family, we were always close to our main families. But now my grandpa and grandma moved down there when I was about 16 years old. About 15, 16 years old. And they lived in the old Kushner house over from where the old Kushner house.
Now, would that have been the Harrison side?
That was my daddy and my dad's mother and dad.
Yes.
And they had lived in Dallas, and they moved down here, and that's when I was talking about when I went to get the cows. I'd stop at
Yes,
there.
yes.
And she died when she was 56 years old.
Oh.
And back then, they didn't come and take the body to a funeral home. They laid the people out, just laid them out at home.
Yes.
And then when they come to get them to bury them, they would bring the casket and everything. And they brought it in a great big old white hearse. And I was flabbergasted. But it was muddy, and that old hearse got stuck going over to pick Granny up. And Papa had to take his mules and pull that through the pasture out onto a road that the hearse could make it to the cemetery. And then we followed it in a wagon when my grandma died.
And did you say you were 6 years old then?
About 14 or 16.
16,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Must have been. Was that one of the earliest recollections? Of course, you'd had your sister and others, but
yeah, we all took them.
yes.
They used to make caskets up here at telephone.
No, I didn't.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
know
yeah.
that.
Yeah, they made caskets up here at telephone. And I don't know whether that's where grandmas come from or not. I can't remember that. But I know my little brothers and sisters that died. That's where they came from. They made them up here at telephone.
Did they sell them all over the county?
All over down in here now. I don't know where they sold them
yes,
in Bonham
yes.
or where not.
Yes.
But there was a casket place up there where they made caskets. And I don't know whether anybody's told you this or not, but we had where we used to make mattresses. We had everybody just took their cotton, had it ginned, and then we would take those things and have you ever saw them? Those that you take your cotton and you run it backwards and forth. They were about this long, about this wide, and they had bristles, kind of little wire-looking bristles. And you'd take your cotton and you'd put it between these two and just run it backwards and forth till that cotton would be just as fine as silk. And that's the way we made our mattresses. We'd take that cotton that we ginned at the cotton, and we'd do it that way, and then we'd bring it up here, and they had the things where we could stretch the ticking and everything,
Yes.
And Jack and I, one of our good mattresses come from there. We used it for years and years and years. We made good mattresses,
Right here in telephone.
Right here in telephone, yeah. I don't know whether anybody ever told you that or
No,
not.
I never knew
Didn't
that.
know if they had that.
I
Yeah.
never knew
Yeah, they had that right here in telephone. It's they had that. Well, now that and the casket where they built the caskets was all together different times because the casket thing they had quit
That was earlier.
That was earlier. That was
Yes.
when I was just a kid.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
when my brothers and sisters died, that's where they got them from there. And I wouldn't doubt if that wasn't where Grandma got hers,
Mhm.
because that was back then. I don't know.
Now, there's a cemetery east of town here, is that right?
Have you ever been down here, Forest Grove Cemetery?
Yes, it's called Forest Grove Cemetery.
It's a big cemetery.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Is that where your grandmother was
Yeah,
buried?
my great grandma, the one that owned this safe, and my great granddaddy, and all my grandma's brothers and sisters, and all them's buried down there, and then all of Papa's family's all buried down there. So all my families is all buried down here,
Yes.
all of them, at one cemetery.
Well, I thank you so much for this visit.
Well, I don't
And,
know what you can get out of it,
Oh,
but
I
you just
certainly can
you
get
just-
a lot.
you just do whatever you want to do, put in whatever you want to, and it'll suit me just fine. And I'm sure my kids will be glad to do it, because they wanted me to tell them. It's so much, it's hard for me to tell them all of it, because I think of things, just different times I just think of things that happened that I'd never told them,
Yes.
you know. And something else the other day I thought of, and nobody else knows it. They say, Grandma? That's what the grandkids will say. Grandma, you tell us some more. But anyway, we were all poor, but we didn't know it.
Yes.
We were all happy. We never went to bed hungry. We never went to bed cold in our life.
Well, you said your father was a good provider.
He was a good provider. He was.
Yes.
And my mother was a good
Manager.
manager. That's exactly what you call it. She was a good manager.
Right.
You know, she knew how to manage what we had. Anyway,
Don't you feel like you've had a good life?
I have had a good life. I have. I have no regrets over my life. Of course, a lot of people got to go and got a good education. I didn't get any education. All I've got is what I've learned on my own
Sure.
through the years. And I know that, you know, I can't even, a computer, I couldn't work it. Now they say I could if I wanted to.
Of course you could.
That's what they all say. They wanted to get me one, and I said, now I can't work that computer. But they all say I could, and I guess I could,
Yes.
you know, if I make myself do it.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, I hope I've enlightened you some on the way we lived back then. That's all I know to tell you, just the way we lived. I had to walk to school. It was 5 miles from where we lived around the road. But we came through the pasture, which was about 3 miles to school. Every day I went to school, I walked to school. We didn't have any other way to go.
Was that one way? 5 miles one way?
5 miles one way. It'd been 10 miles.
10 miles
And
altogether?
through the pasture was about, they said it's about 3 miles.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
through there. And we walked it. One day, my little brother was following me to school, and, you know, we don't pay attention to it now, but there was a big old black cloud come up back in the north and west, you know, and of course we knew it was going to come big norther, you know. And I said, oh goodness, it's going to freeze the horns off of a billy goat. And my little brother, he turned around and went back home. She said, why did you come back home? I said, well, Gladys said it's going to freeze the horns off of a billy goat. Of course, I guess I'd heard that said long.
Sure.
But that's what I told him, it's going to freeze the horns off of a billy goat. It's hard to remember all of it at one time, because I can go to bed at night. If I can't go to sleep, it'll be some of it rolling around that I'll think about, you know.
Sure.
kid said, now, Mother, you need to tell us all this when you